All right, welcome back to KP Ready Unpacked. This is my opportunity to ask KP Ready, the CEO and founder of not only Shadow Ventures, but KP Ready Company. KP, what were you thinking when you posted that on LinkedIn? My name is Jeff Eccles. I'm a senior advisor and also the head of our mastermind and incubator programs here at KP Ready Company. And as always, I am joined by our CEO and founder, KP Ready. KP, welcome. Glad you're here this morning.
Hey Jeff, how's it going?
It's going well. I'm looking through the window in the background. You're in Atlanta. I'm in Indianapolis today, and for the first time in about 10 or 12 years, I think we're actually having winter in Indianapolis right now. 15 degrees, we have snow and ice, but I'm looking through the window behind you, and it looks pretty nice there in Atlanta today.
It's a it's a balmy 32,
Perfect.
which for the locals here, so to speak, it might as well be -10.
It may as well be. It may as well be. Well, good thing we're inside as we record this. But I was scrolling through your LinkedIn, and as always, and for those of you that have never listened to one of these episodes before, as I said earlier, this is my opportunity to ask KP, what went into, what inspired that post. Because if you're not following KP on LinkedIn, you should be. Just go to KP, the two letters, Ready, Reddy. Follow him on LinkedIn, and he posts usually a couple of times a day at least, and all of his posts are reflective. They're all about conversations that he's had as he's talked to founders. Some of them stir the pot, but they're all looking at what's going on and what the future is for the AEC world, for the built environment, innovation in the built environment. And so, KP, as I was scrolling through, I found this post, and I'm just going to read it to you. You know what it says,
Mhm.
but our listeners don't. I'm going to read it really quickly, and then we can start to unpack it. So it says, founders, try this. When pitching an investor, start with your problem that you're solving. Then pause and ask, are you interested in solving this problem? This will likely tell you whether you need to keep going or not. As a founder, you are a rebellion leader. You don't have time to convince people of your mission. You need to use that time to find the believers. I love that. I love that last part of that because I think that's 100% true. And the first part of that obviously is right on. I mean, that's exactly when we think about startups, when we think about business models, et cetera, this is where the focus has to start. But why did this come to mind? Why this now as you're posting
Mm.
that on LinkedIn?
So I think there's a few things. One, you start getting towards the end of the year, you start to be a little bit more reflective, and if you're not, you should be, by the way. But you generally get a little bit more reflective. And one of the things with founders is they do this thing where someone says they go pitch a VC or an angel investor, whoever, strategic investor, and they get so enamored with their own technology. They focus on, all the things that they're coached to do. What's your TAM? What's your this? What problem are you solving? Here's your elegance. Here's the team. But it's a total waste of time. Just because a VC gives you an hour does not mean you should use the hour. You're there to pre-qualify. And the idea that you are going to convince someone who has lots of options. I mean, I see, 10, 15 pitches a week, and I'm rank stacking the opportunities, right? And so when you're pitching me, I already have a list of 50 that I'm working through. So I'm either going to insert you at the top of the pile or at the bottom of the pile. Now, if you think about it, it's a people game, right? So if someone is not interested in your mission and there's not mission alignment, there are not enough words that will get them excited. In fact, a lot of founders think like, oh, because I have early traction, that early traction does not mean anything to an investor. What it means is you've built early rebel forces that have aligned with you. Because oh yeah, we have 20,000 a month in revenue. It's like, who cares? That was my credit card bill last month. Like that, it doesn't mean anything, right? It means nothing. But what traction tells you is, if you think about If you're a Star Wars fan, whatever, if you think about the rebellion, right? There wasn't a lot of convincing. It was just like this absolute and blind faith in, yes, this needs to happen. And so I think as a founder, if you focus on that mission alignment, VCs, customers, all the people you're trying to pitch have lots and lots of latitude and judgment. It's not purely about the numbers. If a customer is super excited and aligned with your mission, and they're like, oh my God, that is such a huge problem. It keeps me up at night. They don't care about price. They don't care about where you are. They might tell you, hey, I work for $100 billion company. I can't work with a two-person startup. But I'll tell you what, I want to spend time with you and help you not be a startup. Right. And that's how people get engaged. Right. They want to go on that journey with you. They want to go on that mission with you. And too many founders deal with either trying to convince people that are not mission aligned, that don't believe already, or people that are kind of mediocre, like, oh, sounds good. Sounds good is not a positive indication, right? It's like, no, 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 let's go. Let's go do this.
Yep.
Like, let's go do this. Let's go take down the Death Star kind of thing.
Hmm.
And founders waste so much time trying to convince. And the reality is, if you're doing that, you probably have a problem. I mean, you've heard me give my talks, right? I'm like, hey, we're all part of the largest and most important industry in the world. What was it at the last executive briefing? I said, hey, you're part of the largest, most impactful industry in the world, and we have to do things differently. Are you with me? And if you're not, there's the door. I was very clear. Do not come back if you are not on mission with me. And I think founders have to have a little bit of that attitude. Like, I'm not going to convince you. I don't have enough hours in a day to convince you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as you say that, and so you're talking about hearing pitches. The other side of that coin is our incubator is running. We've got
Hmm.
startup founders in our incubator that are going through this. And one of the things that we always do with founders that go through our incubator is we provide pitch training, right? We'll
Hmm.
we'll have people that will work with them and help them work on their deck, help them work on the actual pitch itself, et cetera. I think one of the questions, you brought it up, right? You've got an hour blocked out with a VC. Should you actually spend that hour, right? That's a really great question. Should it
Hmm.
be an hour? Should it be 5 minutes, right? If you ask that
Hmm.
question and you don't have that alignment. But one of the things that came to mind as you were saying that was, I don't know what he's doing these days. I haven't heard from him lately. I'm sure he's doing something similar. But Guy Kawasaki, it's that
Hmm.
guy that's been
Yeah.
out there for decades now. And I think the first time I ran across Guy Kawasaki, he called himself an evangelist
Hmm.
for whoever it was that he was with at the time. It was Apple, or he's been with Canva. There's been a
Hmm.
number of
Yeah.
people. I assume he's investing, but he's the evangelist, right? And so when you say um, that, how did it go? As a founder, you're a rebellion leader. You don't have time to convince people of your mission. I think about Guy Kawasaki, and even though he calls himself an evangelist, he's out there and he's sort of a firebrand, right? Not in the sort of
Hmm.
negative sense that we think of politically maybe these days and things like that, but he's out there speaking, using certain language that's extreme, it's exciting, it's these types of things. But what he's doing is he's looking for the two people in the room that hear him say that and go, yes, I'm with you. I believe in that. I believe in those
Hmm.
same things. I want to come along
Right.
with you, not the whole room,
Yeah.
just those two people that say, yes, that's me. Right. That's
Hmm.
they're, the people that join the rebellion, as you say.
Hmm.
He's, I don't think Guy Kawasaki has ever been in a Star Wars episode, but maybe he could be.
But that's the thing is like Um, when you're focused and mission driven, you can't optimize for the masses.
Right. 100%.
You have to optimize for the few.
Hmm.
And the worst thing, I mean, think about this, as a founder, you're on a shot clock.
Hmm.
And so if you have a bunch of 1 hour calls with VCs that were essentially a waste of time, they're not on mission. They don't get it. And by the way, it's okay for them not to get it. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that problem existed, but I want to learn. Okay, you got them,
Hmm.
right? That curiosity is a early indicator of, okay, they might be on mission, right? They might be on mission with me. But if you cut down all those 1 hour meetings and you have 5 a week to 15 minutes, you're getting a half a day back.
Right.
And as a founder, you need every moment of your day to be highly optimized. But what's interesting is when it comes to customers and investors, founders do a very bad job optimizing their time. It's kind of like, oh, the prospect talked to me, so now I'm going to spend an hour with them.
Hmm.
I've been known. It's kind of funny. Sometimes it comes off as rude, but I'll be at a conference and somebody that I know is not mission aligned with me wants to talk to me, and I'm like, hey, I gotta go. Like I'll just interrupt them a few minutes in.
Hmm.
I don't have the time. I'm at a
Right.
conference. I need to optimize. If there's 100 people there, I need to optimize to the 5 or 10 people that I don't have to explain any of it to.
Right.
They already kind of get it, right?
Right.
And so I think founders just have to optimize better to that. And so I've never done it as a founder. Actually, that's not true. I just did it a couple weeks ago for a stealth company I'm starting. And I did talk to a larger investor, and I'm like, "Hey, this is what I care about." And they're like, "Interesting. Tell me more." And when I told them more, they're like, "Yeah, I get it. Let's go.
Hmm.
Right? Let's go." I didn't have a pitch deck. I was in his living room, just
Yeah.
BSing, drinking a glass of wine. I'm like, "Hey, here's what I really want to do with my life, and I'm doing things that are pieces and parts of it. But if I had infinite money, here's what I would do." And he's like, "Tell me more." And he's like, "Yeah, let's go, let's do it."
Yeah.
Right. And so I think, um, in many ways, a lot of the industrialization of startups, i.e., here's what a pitch deck should look like.
Hmm.
All right, here's what a pitch deck should look like. Here's where you should go pitch. Here's how long your pitch should be.
Right.
Right? We've tried to industrialize something that is really more of a cottage industry.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's super interesting, and I really, as we coach the folks in our incubator, I want them to realize, like, hey, there's different ways to approach this, and there's different ways to stand out.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you say that, I mean, we're I guess as we're recording this, we're almost 2 weeks away. Maybe we're 10 days away from our next virtual demo day, which
Mhm,
most of the year we present our virtual demo days on the final Friday of every month. But because of the holidays, we're in December right now, so we've moved this month's virtual demo day to December 13th.
mhm,
And I do this with my students as well, right? And I can see this in the founder's eyes or my students' eyes if it's in that context, because I do basically a demo day for them. But when I tell them that they have 5 minutes to pitch and 5 minutes for Q&A, the looks on their faces, right? It's like, what do you mean I only have 5 minutes? I think this is a great example, right? The whole premise behind demo day would be to start a rebellion.
mhm,
Show up, you get 5 minutes to light a fire in, I think last demo day we had about 80 some people registered in the audience. You have 5 minutes to light a fire
mhm,
and find the two or three or whatever people that are in the audience out of that 80 or so, whatever it is,
mhm.
that are going to join your rebellion. That's what our virtual demo days are about. That's different than pitching a VC, certainly, but I think it's a good example. And then, when I'm advising professional services firms, one of the things I tell them is, this is marketing and business development 101 basically, but you are not the right firm for every client, and every client's not the right client for you, and that's okay, right? And it's more than okay. That's good, right? We have to
Hmm.
get to the few that we do have that mission alignment with, that rebellious alignment with. I love the now I'm kind
Hmm.
of stuck on the rebellion idea,
Yeah.
but we can't be everything to everyone.
But that's the whole thing, right? We forget the startup narratives, right? We talk about disruption. What is disruption? That is like rebel forces, right? And I think there's a
Exactly. Yeah.
reason, I think, when you look at some of the, most successful entrepreneurs, like an Elon Musk, think what you think of them, right? But they're hit deep into sci-fi. And if
Hmm.
you look at like most of the storylines around sci-fi, there is like like there's always like a Star Wars moment, right? There are
Hmm.
a certain people, right? A certain species, whatever, right? There's always something like that. And I think, and by the way, I think this concept applies not just to investors, but also customers and
Hmm.
also your employees,
Right.
especially in the early days, right? And so when you think about building a culture, it's really hard as a startup founder. Like, what is it we're going to be? What is it we're going to be? Right. And I think you and all the other folks on my team know my culture. It's like fuck off culture. Like, oh, you don't like that? Fuck off. Like, I don't have time for it. Right.
Hmm.
Partly I'm ADHD, partly I'm getting old and grumpy, and partly I might be on spectrum, TBD, but I have zero patience for much of anything.
Hmm.
And I think you guys figured that out pretty quickly. Our former employees and former colleagues figured it out, and they're no longer here,
Right.
right? And if you look at my LPs and my investors, they know there's a certain amount of KP that they have to like deal
Hmm.
with, but they're in. They're in. My delivery may be difficult sometimes, but they get it. They're in on the mission.
Yeah. Yes, and even in other scenarios, right? I mean, how do you make this a um, very functional sort of conversation? You look at your salespeople, right? And we know salespeople that just thrive on dialing for dollars, right? They're trying to
Hmm.
get to the next no, because that's the fastest way to the next yes. But you were talking about optimizing your time, right? And there's someone that I know that's a VP of sales at a large logistics organization. We've talked a lot about how they come up with their metrics, and all the ways that they conduct their business and manage their sales force, et cetera. As a salesperson, if you're not optimizing your time, right? If you're just, hey, I'm giving the same pitch over and over and over and over and over and over and over to all of these people, when you could change up your language, you could change up your approach, you could be out there looking, you know, being that grassroots rebel leader
Hmm.
in the salesperson suit, or whatever salespeople wear
Yeah.
now as they're dialing. Um, you could be that rebel leader and
Yeah.
just completely change and completely optimize your approach. And we know a lot of salespeople that are out there that need that, right? They need
Hmm.
to. It's a qualification process, essentially.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like I've been, trying to think about a single word. One, I want to start creating merch, you know, because I don't have enough to do. Um, but I've been thinking about like the single word that defines what we're doing, right? What I'm doing through investing, what I'm doing with my founders. Just one word, right? Because one word on a T-shirt, on a hat, that's the deal. On a water bottle, on reading glasses, like whatever that word is, right? And about 8 years ago, I launched this thing called Disruptors Only. That was a bunch of happy hours and stuff like that. And it was wild because I would host it like at AI National, but off campus, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'd
Parallel.
have 50 people show up,
Hmm.
right? I'm like, hey, we got to do something. This industry, this planet, this society, we have too big of a role and we're not doing it right. We got to do it differently. And then I had people say like, "Ooh, disruptor, it sounds so harsh," right? And then we kind of shifted that to catalyst.
Hmm.
And I think what's interesting about the term catalyst, which I think is what I'm going to go with, just so you know, as we're workshopping here in front of out in the open.
Yeah.
Um, the reason I started thinking about catalyst, it's kind of nerdy, right? It's a chemistry word. It's a nerdy word, but also this industry is so fragmented, both size and it's just a super fragmented industry. And I don't think there's a single point. It's not a central like, "Oh, if I go do this and put down the big hammer and that it has this rippling effect throughout the industry." I think it is literally a lot of different little sparks from
Hmm.
different people, different startups that are all creating catalysts to point to the point where we hit a tipping point and the entire industry can change. But I don't think there's like this one. There's not one hammer, one nail to hammer, so to speak. It's a bunch of little things that have to happen. And so when I think about a catalyst, I think about these founders, right? I need a rebel force over here that's focused on disrupting, you know, how we do quantity takeoffs using AI. I need another one over here that's using AI to better optimize energy in data centers, like our recent investment in Fluid. So it's not a single source. It's more this like network effect, and it's like a catalyst, and much like you heat up a pot, right? All the little atoms like bounce around, right? It's that kind of collision effect, I think. And so, but no, I think yeah, you have to wake up every. I just feel like I'll wake up every morning, and dude, I'm like ready to swing and punch somebody. That is how I wake up. I'm just like I'm out to take on the day and take on whatever's in front of me. Like let's roll, let's go. And I think as a founder, I think that's that founder edge I've always had. It's just I get up and I want to like my wife always says, she's like, "You wake up and you like act like you're to go like fight somebody." Like, yeah, me and the world. I'm out there, I'm swinging punches, right? And so I think that founder edge, a lot of founders get stuck in the industrial startup world and they forget about that. They're focused on the font on their deck and they're focused on all these other things. Oh, like it can only be 7 slides because Jeff told me. No, it'd be great, Jeff, if one of them showed up with 8 slides
Or six.
or six and told you to like fuck off.
Yes. Yeah, they should.
Those are the founders we want.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
The
to
ones that
that
want to
point,
fight with us, right? The ones that want to fight
yeah,
with us.
yeah. To that point, why in the world are you accepting the idea of 7 slides? Right?
Well,
Your solution, your problem is different
yeah.
than the next. I mean, I've given you that guideline,
Well,
right?
you know me well enough that everything is a test. Every
Yeah,
conversation, every interaction is a test for me. And
right.
it's like all psych ops for me. And so there's plenty of founders that I will run down the road saying, like, yeah, sounds like a great idea, great idea. They get all excited. And then I turn left on them and they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
It's because they really didn't have conviction. They weren't on mission, right? And I think I want people to argue with me. I want them to tell me I'm wrong
A
because
rebel
then I
leader
know they're
would.
trying. Because then I know they're
Hmm.
trying.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so much. We see this. There's a message in my inbox right now that I'm still thinking about how to respond to. And we see this all the time, especially through our incubator, of course, and you see it as you hear pitches from different startup founders that may go through our incubator or may not, right? They may be at a different point in their development, but we also know that a very small percentage of those founders are going to be the founder of um, that organization, so to speak, that startup a year from now, because it's not going to exist. It's not going to survive. But it's the ones that are out there that are beating the drum, that are carrying the flag, that are
Hmm.
leading the rebellion, right? Those are the ones that have the best chance. Those are the ones that as as you pointed out, they're the ones that are going to get the investment that, when they find the people that are showing up uh, to answer their call, right? In
Hmm.
the figurative rebel leader sort of sense there. There's no there's no room, right? If you don't have that conviction, if you're not willing to plant that flag, carry it up the mountain and plant it. I'm trying to string together as many cliches as possible in one sentence, but but if you're not leading the rebellion, why? Why?
Right.
What are you doing?
Well, yeah. What's the point?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, this is again. I'm gonna read the post again. This is from KP's LinkedIn. As we record this, this is a week ago, so the end of November, I suppose, 2024. Maybe you're listening to this episode in 2026 or something like that. But it goes like this: Founders, try this. When pitching an investor, start with your problem that you are solving. Then pause and ask, "Are you interested in solving this problem?" This will likely tell you whether you need to keep going or not. As a founder, you are a rebellion leader. You don't have time to convince people of your mission. You need to use that time to find the believers. If you're not following KP Ready on LinkedIn, you should be. It's just KP Ready, Reddy. Follow him. He posts usually a couple times a day, maybe sometimes more, every once in a while, a little bit less. But he talks about conversations that he's having, experiences that he has, um, you know, hearing pitches, working at our incubator. Today, we're recording this now, and we're going to roll straight into several mastermind meetings later today. He's basically relaying the information and processing the information, maybe out loud, as he goes. And the posts are always insightful, often pot stirring, but I think they're important in the context of the AEC industry. So follow KP Ready, and thanks for listening in as we unpack one of his posts. So KP, thanks for unpacking this one with me, and
Absolutely.
look forward to doing it again next week.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back again next week with another KP Unpacked. We'll see you next week.